Hey, Sam here from Sugar Spun Run. Today I am sharing another gourmet cookie recipe. I'm calling these black bottom cookies and I am so excited to share them with you. So a while back I shared a recipe from my grandmother for black bottom cupcakes. You've probably seen these at potlucks. They're just this old-fashioned recipe with a chocolate cupcake and a cream cheese, like marble filling mixed in. They're amazing. I'm obsessed with them. And so I decided to build a gourmet cookie around them. Ingredients you need, not too fancy today. The description, check that for the full recipe, full list of ingredients, everything you need to know there. But let's go ahead and jump right in because these actually come together pretty easily and everyone who tries them is going to love them. First things first, oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. You can get that started right off the bat. First, we're going to make the filling. This is a cream cheese based filling because black bottoms use cream cheese. You're going to need 8 ounces of this brick style cream cheese. Don't use non-fat because it's runny and because it doesn't work very well. We're just going to drop this in our mixing bowl. This should be softened, so I want to make sure it's nice and easy to mix. Otherwise, your filling could be lumpy, which just isn't ideal. Next, we're going to add 1 cup of powdered sugar. This is 125 grams. I do always recommend weighing your ingredients with a kitchen scale. That's going to give you best results. Next, a teaspoon of vanilla extract is going to flavor this filling nicely for us. Go ahead and add that in. Oops. A healthy teaspoon. Now you can mix this together by hand if you wanted. I'm just going to use my electric mixer to make quick work of it. All right, we're going to be putting a lot of mini chocolate chips in this recipe. It goes in the cookie in like 3 different parts, but for now, we're going to add a 1/3 cup right into our cream cheese mixture. And this part I'll just stir it in by hand. Everything should be nice and soft by now. And it's a good opportunity to scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl to make sure your ingredients are well incorporated. Super important. I would say even when you are not using a stand mixer, but it is very important when you're using a stand mixer to scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl. Okay, the filling is going to need to freeze. I just have a small baking sheet. You could use a plate, whatever you want. Lined it with a bit of wax paper for easy cleanup. I'm going to scoop about 4 teaspoon-sized portions, like rounded tablespoon-sized portions, what we're going for. If you're weighing these dollops, you'll need about 18 or 19 grams per dollop. And Nikki's probably cringing over there right now because I'm so bad at consistently measuring these and I'm not using my scale right now. But if you're not using a scale, you're going to end up with 20 or 21 of these dollops. If you end up with fewer than that, you know you scoop them too big. I love this 1 tablespoon size cookie scoop. I'm trying to get better about linking to my Amazon shop in the description, but that's where you can find most of the tools. Oh, my oven's ready. You can find most of the tools that you use, that I use. 19 and 20. Look at that, I did not portion them too big for once. What can I say? I like a lot of cream cheese. That one looks kind of sad. It needs some more chocolate. There we go. This is going into our freezer. It's going to chill while we make our cookie dough. That way these will be nice and firm and easy to stuff inside the cookie dough. All right, now you need a large mixing bowl. To this, we are going to add 1 cup of unsalted butter. And I'm going to break this into pieces. It's kind of cold. I might need a knife for this. Let's cut that into pieces because we're going to be melting our butter. And cutting it into pieces will help it melt evenly. My other sister, Casey, who abandoned me to go work on a movie, as I knew she would. She is notorious for exploding butter in the microwave. Cutting it is a good way to avoid that happening, and also microwaving in intervals. Good way to prevent that. All right, we'll pop this in the microwave. Quick mix, then back in for just 10 more seconds. All right, now we are nicely melted, mostly melted. So we're going to add our cocoa powder right away. This is a 1/2 cup, 50 grams natural cocoa powder. Prefer the natural to the Dutch process. I also like to add a pinch of espresso powder or even instant coffee if I have it. That's going to intensify the chocolate flavor. It's not really going to make it taste like coffee, but I like a little bit of that bitterness in my chocolate. All right, I'm going to whisk this into the butter. And we add the cocoa immediately while the butter is warm because we are blooming the cocoa, which again helps keep the chocolate flavor from falling flat. As a bonus, it's also going to help our mixture cool down a little bit because the cocoa powder, great in warm butter. Sugar, bad idea in warm butter. Sugar in warm butter is going to give you a melty cookie dough that spreads all over the place. It's going to be greasy, difficult to work with. So after this point, we're going to wait until the bottom of the bowl or the mixture itself no longer feels warm to the touch. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time. Since this is still a bit warm, let's just move on to our dry ingredients. So we need another bowl. Now the first thing you need for your dry ingredients is cake flour. Lots of my gourmet cookies, we're using cake flour, and I'm not doing this just to make you buy another flour. I'm doing it because it really is going to give you different results. It's going to give you a softer, more tender cookie that leans towards cakiness without being dry. Like normally people say they hate a cakey cookie. That's because it has a texture that's too airy, dry, and crumbly. This is like a melt in your mouth cakiness that you want, and you're only going to get that with cake flour. And not to go on about this, but just a word of caution, lots of people are using a cake flour substitute where they take the flour and the cornstarch. If you're doing that, or they're just using, you know, it calls for 3.5 cups of cake flour, they're using 3.5 cups of all-purpose. That's not good. You're going to have dry, crumbly cookies with no flavor, and then you're going to get mad at me. I'll go on about this more over in the blog post, but cake flour is what I really recommend for this recipe. Any swap, you need to swap by weight and not by cups. Okay, let me step down from my soapbox. 3.5 cups of cake flour. Once you try it, you won't go back. And then 1 teaspoon of baking soda and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of table salt. And I just used my whisk for the cocoa, so let me see if I have another one in here. This feels like overkill, but that's fine. Important thing is the leavening agents get well distributed. Let's move this out of the way. Grab our cocoa mixture. It's feeling pretty nice. I think we can move forward with this. So the next ingredient I'm going to add, I actually could have added this right after the cocoa powder. It would have been fine. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of oil. Use a neutral cooking oil. I'm using avocado. Canola or vegetable will work if you prefer those. So why the cooking oil? Once again, these cookies are inspired by black bottom cupcakes, so I wanted to have that soft and tender texture. Oil is going to give us that. Also, these cookies are filled with cream cheese. If you're not eating them all, like within a couple hours of them being baked, you're going to store them in the refrigerator. I specifically designed this recipe so that when you store it in the refrigerator, they're still going to be soft and they're not going to like break your teeth or anything. And the oil really helps with that. Next, we'll add our sugar, finally. Remember, never add sugar to warm butter, at least. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a situation where it's okay, just not in this situation. This is a cup or 200 grams of granulated and 2/3 cup or 133 grams of firmly packed light brown sugar. We'll go ahead and mix these in. And here's where things start to smell really good. We haven't even added the vanilla yet. All right, let's bring this bowl back because we're going to crack our eggs. Put these here on display because they're pretty. We're looking for large eggs, which can be tricky with my chickens because sometimes they lay super jumbo extra large eggs and sometimes they lay teeny tiny fairy eggs. We'll crack our eggs in a separate bowl, and your eggs should really be, whoa, that one's not eating her oyster shell. And you should really be using room temperature eggs because cold eggs are going to kind of seize up that melted butter a bit, and it just makes it more difficult for things to combine nicely. So I'll add our eggs. It wouldn't hurt to lightly beat them before you add them. And I'm also going to add the vanilla. This is 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract, one of my favorite ingredients, though it is possible to overdo it, speaking from experience. Let's go ahead and mix in these eggs and vanilla. Now we're really smelling good in here. Let's bring back our dry ingredients, and we're going to gradually add them to the dough. And yes, be gradual about it because it allows the wet ingredients to properly absorb the flour. I feel like I talk about this all the time, but if you add all of the flour at once, it's going to overwhelm the wet ingredients. It'll be really difficult to combine. Your dough will be crumbly, you'll overwork it, and hopefully you're not mad at me, but you might be. I don't want you guys to be mad at me. I want you to have some really, really good cookies. And one of the things I love about these cookies is that they're unique, but they're not like crazy over the top. Like traditional chocolate chip cookie lovers are going to enjoy these. If you don't want to do this part by hand, you can absolutely use your mixer. Just keep it on low speed. I do try not to overwork the dough, but it's not a cake. It's not as big of a deal. Last bit of flour just keeps smelling better and better. All right, once all of our flour is absorbed, you'll see we have a pretty stiff dough. We're going to add our mini chocolate chips. I know we're not done with the mini chocolate chips either. This is 3/4 cup, and we will fold these into the batter, which will be a little bit of work because it's a stiff batter, but it needs to be in order to hold in that cream cheese filling. All right, nicely combined. Let's grab our baking sheet. I love these pre-cut parchment sheets. Now our cream cheese filling is going to soften really fast. So before I pull it out of the fridge, I'm going to start scooping it. I want 3 tablespoons of dough per cookie. This is my 1.5 tablespoon size scoop, so we're just doing this times 2. If you're weighing it, it's about 67 grams per cookie. I notoriously over scoop mine, so I'll try not to do that. I usually bake 6 cookies to a tray. Super important you give them some breathing room. This applies to anytime you're making cookies. So ultimately they'll be spaced about 2 inches apart. Okay, so I have my scoops. Move this out of the way for a moment. Let me grab my cream cheese. And that pan is cold. All right, take your cookie dough, roll it into a ball, make like a nest with your thumb into the center, grab that cream cheese. We're just going to fill that cookie dough. So something I like to do is I like a sneak peek of what's inside the cookie. So I like to sort of take the top and pinch it and like swirl it a little bit. So some of that cream cheese is showing. Optional, but you know, black bottoms are like messy on top because you see the cream cheese and you see the chocolate. So I wanted to sort of emulate that here. You can just completely conceal it if you prefer. That's your choice. If the cream cheese is getting too soft, just pop it back in the freezer and just pull out 1 dollop at a time, but it's okay if it's messy. See, it's sticking to my fingers. Like I said, it's a messy cupcake, so it's okay if the cookie's messy too. And I've never had an issue with my cookie dough being difficult to use, but if yours is, and you feel like it's just too difficult to work with, just pop it in the fridge, cover it, put it in the fridge for like 20-30 minutes. I will definitely be putting the cream cheese back in the freezer between batches. But wait, there's more. Told you we weren't done with the chocolate chips. I have a few more chocolate chips measured out here. It's probably like a 4th cup, maybe a 3rd cup. I think a 4th would probably get you where you need to be. And you can either just like sprinkle some of the chocolate chips on top. That's a little bit messy. Or my preference is just to take the cookie dough and just sort of dip it in there. I don't completely cover it, but I get a nice little coating. They're gonna be so cute. All right, into the oven. Center rack, 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 Celsius. I find these usually only need to bake for about 10 minutes. This is a lighter colored pan, it might need 11. But keep in mind, the inside of this cookie is filled with cream cheese, sugar, vanilla. It doesn't need to bake through like most cookies do. You're mostly cooking that outer layer. And if you overbake this cookie, it's going to be dry, crumbly, and you're going to be disappointed. So don't overbake it, keep an eye on it. And if the center looks a tad underdone when you pull it out, that's okay. Okay, so take a look at these. You can see a little bit of cream cheese peeking through just like we hoped. Be careful, these are fragile when they're warm. If you try to eat them now, you are going to burn your mouth because that cream cheese is like liquid in there. Let these cool completely on the baking sheet. They're also going to finish baking, especially if they look a little bit underdone when you pull them out. Remember, if you're not eating all of these cookies right away, which you really shouldn't, but who am I to judge, then you're going to want to refrigerate them in an airtight container and enjoy them cold or let them sit out at room temperature for a couple minutes and let them warm up before you eat them. All right, that is how you make what I call black bottom cookies. They're amazing, can't wait for you to try them. When you do, let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you next time. All right, I'm gonna cut into this. Let me show you what the inside looks like. Nikki, you ready for our close-up? It's still a little bit warm. Thank you, Nikki. That's a good cookie. And let's pause momentarily. Oh, ooh, oh, I'm feeling sniffly. Good.